it maybe another minute before we open it up to see if anybody else is going to join us.
Yes, Mayor, we have a couple people on the line with us with some technical difficulties. We're trying to get them on, and then once we do, we'll let you know.
Okay, perfect. Give it a few more minutes.
Yeah.
And I would just generally remind people, if you're not talking or speaking, to mute your microphone so that we don't get feedback through the system.
Dave, ask the one.
Mayor, we're still working on it, but I think we should probably start. We shouldn't wait much longer.
Okay, just want to give a quick welcome. I want to thank everyone for being on the call, for taking the time to participate in this. Neighborhood leaders, community leaders, appreciate your time and effort that you give every day on behalf of the city. This is a exciting project that we're undertaking. It has the ability to improve the community, strengthen it, and we want people to respect the police. We want police to be viewed as community leaders. As I tell recruits when I hire them, I expect them to earn that every day. And with that, I also just want to thank Jason Benitez too, in terms of moderating this and the work that he's done in kind of guiding this whole process. With that, I'll turn it over to Chief Clifford for any remarks that he may have. Chief?
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight is all about the participants on this call, so please speak freely and openly, and we're interested to hear what you have to say. The steering committee should be on, and we have members of the audience on. And of course, if you have any questions for us, we will be happy to answer them. It's primarily about everybody here as a participant. And with that, I will turn it over to Jason. Thank you, Jason, for this and for your opening.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Chief, and good evening to everyone on the call. I really appreciate all of you being with us tonight. Just a little bit of housekeeping, and then we'll get right to the discussion. So for emotional, spiritual, or other support on the call tonight, if tonight's discussion brings up anything for anyone, we do have Reverend Kathy Gorman Coombs on the call, who has agreed to stay after the call's over in case anybody needs to connect to debrief or discuss anything. In addition, the Office of Community Services of Schenectady County has offered support for anyone seeking assistance for mental health. Though the line is not staffed after hours, voicemail can be left and they will follow up the next morning to ensure that any individual seeking services is connected with proper services. And their number is 518-386-2218. Again, 518-386-2218. So this evening, folks, I'm going to give an amended version of my introductory statement and also going over the community conversation guidelines. We'll briefly touch on a few of those. We won't go over them in much extensive detail. We found that, the first call, we were just trying to get our feet under us, and a lot of the housekeeping and introductory kind of things really took up a lot of time that we wanted to really devote to the conversation. So with that, I'd also ask you all on the call this evening, the way this is going to work is after I give my brief introduction and go over the conversation guidelines, I'm going to throw out a series of questions associated with a number of different topics you've received via the email invite for this evening. You received both the agenda and the questions and the guidelines, so you can feel free to read along there. I will throw out a question and we'll ask everyone, anyone who would like to respond to the question to kind of indicate so. I will, give you the mic, or I'll turn the floor over to you, and we'd like you to just state your name and the organization, the larger organization or community neighborhood group that you represent, and then answer the question. We do really strongly encourage everyone to try to find a way to speak at least once this evening. One, so that we can know everyone who's on the call, and two, that these conversations are more impactful and robust when everyone finds a way to contribute to them. So with that, again, I'd just like to quickly do an intro. My name is Jason Benitez. I go by he and him pronouns, and I currently serve as the Vice President of Talent and Inclusion for the Capital Region Chamber. And I humbly come to this group and the work that it is charged to do with the best of intentions and a sincere willingness to do what we can to produce meaningful, needed change. A little bit about me: I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York City. I identify as a Latino male. I went to UAlbany for my undergrad and graduate work, and then started my career in higher ed for 15 years before joining the chamber last year. I worked at UAlbany, Schenectady Community College, and then most recently Union College in Schenectady. And my roles, particularly while at Union, and I was at Union just shy of 8 years, my roles in higher ed, particularly at Union College, were expressly to work on the diversity and inclusion efforts on campus, and in the community at times, and it often included having difficult conversations and sitting down with folks with differing views and perspectives, and really trying to produce meaningful dialogue through that process. So I hope that we can continue that this evening. The executive order that was given by Governor Cuomo and the subsequent task forces that have been created around the state are kind of a little bit of an acknowledgement that there are issues and problems in the areas of policing policies, practices, and procedures that need to improve, particularly when it comes to addressing disparities that affect communities of color. So we're here to really move that mandate forward. And while we know that no one task force can really tackle all of the issues that are out there, we hope that with community input, that we will produce a set of policy suggestions with the community input that can hopefully lead to policy change and will be adopted. Just, for folks that may not be aware of the timeline, we are going through this round of community conversations and collecting input in both written and oral fashion. And a report will be produced. There will be a period just after the new year where that report will be made public for public comment and viewing. And then by April of 2021, a final set of procedures is to be submitted for potential improvement. So as we enter these community conversations, we've tried to include as many stakeholders as possible, and believe that we will hear from individuals through this process that are fairly representative of the wider Schenectady community and their perspectives. This is really our chance to center the voices of those impacted by these issues the most, and really hopefully listen and learn and see what we can do to make the problem better. So I'd like to close by just saying that, while we are individuals, these issues are systemic, with a number of generations of chapters to these stories. So again, I kind of reiterate that no one task force or community initiative will be able to address that fully, but we're here nonetheless. We choose to stay engaged, and we hope that the work of the task force can really be the beginning steps to both repairing trust where it needs to be repaired, building trust where it needs to be built, and really envisioning with community input a police force that really can meet the needs of the community in a fair and equitable way. So again, I just offer that up as a little bit of an introduction to you all, and I'd like to get right into the conversations with that. We are going to quickly go over the community guidelines here, the conversation guidelines. Again, I'm not going to speak on all of them. I will touch on ones that I feel are most relevant, and then we'll just get right into the conversation. So if you're able to follow along on the screen or on the agenda that was sent, we ask everyone this evening to speak your own truth with care, meaning that it's important to be as authentic and honest as possible, but to do so knowing that we're all in different places in our learning, and it's important to be mindful of the impact we may have on those around us. Where possible, use I statements and avoid making generalizations about a group or broad-based assumptions. Speak from your own experiences. This is a key one, assuming positive intent. I think everyone, by giving up time this evening, is here assuming that everyone comes to this process with a positive intent. The topics we'll focus on and discuss this evening are personal and challenging, and we don't all share the same language or experience. So focus on assuming that everyone is doing the best they can. The ouch, oops. If someone hurts your feelings in a conversation or says something, I'd like somebody, the person that's hurt to say ouch. That's a kind of a public acknowledgement that something was a little bit of a rub, and we will, debrief that as a group where that oops came from, and be aware that, you may intend things to be said one way or intend things to be received one way, but the impact can be felt in a different way, and just being aware of that. leaning in and leaning back. If you don't speak up often, lean into dialogue. If you find that you're speaking up often, try to find a way to lean back. However, we ask that everyone try to remain engaged throughout the entire session. And again, I'll kind of just in a brief fashion, courageous and brave space. There's been a lot of talk about safe spaces. Safe space doesn't mean that you won't be challenged. This may be uncomfortable this evening at time, but what we hope to do is create a courageous or brave space where people can be supported in speaking their own truth to power and really contributing in a meaningful way to this dialogue. And again, yes. Did somebody? Okay, sorry. And expect that we won't resolve everything in one evening session. There may be a lack of closure, but we'll do our best to figure out what we can and contribute to this process in meaningful ways. So again, my name is Jason Benitez, and I welcome everybody, and I thank you all for being on the call this evening. I'm just going to take a minute to switch my view here to panel view, to tile view, so I can see more of you on the screen. And then we'll get right into it. So, all right, preliminary question out here. Just, and again, we ask people, whoever would like to respond, to indicate. I'll call on you, and then we'd ask that you just state your name and the group that you represent. But on the topic of trust, let's start there. From your perspective, how would you describe the current status of the relationship between the Schenectady Police and the wider community? On the topic of trust, from your perspective, how would you describe the current status of the relationship between the Schenectady Police Department and the wider community? And again, that's up for anyone to kick us off and respond to.
My name is Dawn Raysor, and I represent the Hamilton Hill Neighborhood Association. And I would have to say the trust between the police department and neighborhood, as far as I'm concerned, I think it's lacking in a lot of ways. I think over the years, because I'm born and raised in Schenectady or whatever, so I've seen a lot of should I say dishonest behavior, not trustworthy behavior from a lot of officers previous. So I think the trust is lacking in a big way.
Thank you, Dawn, for leading us off. And again, we want these conversations to be as frank and honest as possible. So thank you for that. You all represent community organizations or neighborhood groups and have both a current and historical view on the ground level in your community. So I appreciate those perspectives. Thank you for that. And the steering committee, including the chief and others, are here to really listen tonight. So please be as open and honest as possible. Thank you, Dawn. Anyone else would like to answer that first question? How would you describe the current status of trust or the relationship between the police and the wider community?
Marva Isaacs with Hamilton Hill Neighborhood Association. Well, the trust that I have with the police and police, I'm the friend of the police. And I'm going to say this, I went around to the community and
Marva, your sound is coming in and out a little bit. We lost the audio there. Marva, we can't hear you right now.
Okay, hold on. Let me fix it. Okay.
We have you back now. Go ahead. Marva, can you hear us? We can't hear anything. All right, we will make an attempt to come back to you. So please, if we can get your audio resolved, we'll be sure to come back to you, Marva. Thank you.
Jason, if I may make a suggestion, yes. For Marva, you might have a better connection if you turn your video off.
Okay, thank you, Marissa. a suggestion is sometimes a better connection is secured on audio if the video is turned off. Okay, we'll come back to Marva. Anyone else would like to? Oh, okay. Would anyone else like to respond while we can see if Marva can get back on?
I would.
Yes, please.
All right, my name is Jim LaPointe. I'm with the Woodlawn Neighborhood Association. Although Woodlawn may not be considered diverse, the neighborhood I live in is quite a diverse neighborhood. In fact, on our street of about 8 families, I'd say we are the only, I wouldn't say, I know we are the only white family on our block. So I've had an opportunity to talk to my neighbors. And, I have not, of course, this is Woodlawn, which is not Hamilton Hill. I have not received the type of negative feedback towards the police that I'm hearing from some of the other neighborhoods. I'm not saying that doesn't exist. I'm just saying in my neighborhood that doesn't seem to be the case. And so I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Maybell, is that you looking? You got to unmute yourself there. I still think she's trying to speak to them. There you go, Maybell, go ahead.
Well, I'm representing the Stockade Association, and I've lived in the Stockade for 18 years, but I've also lived in other neighborhoods. I lived in Bellevue for 14 years, and I raised my children on Hamilton Hill, where I lived for 17 years. And I can say that there are very different perceptions of the police, and I believe behavior from the police toward different neighborhoods. I reached out to my neighbors, talking about 25 people so that I would represent them. And they talked about the fact that in the Stockade, they feel that they haven't had negative interactions with the police, primarily because it's a white middle-class neighborhood, and they are also. But as one of my neighbors said, I do read the papers. And a number of people talked about the fact that they find the manner of police intimidating, and the fact that they only see police in cars. Police are never on foot or never there to talk to you, to make a relationship with you. And there was really a consensus among my neighbors that they felt very strongly about stressing community policing and all the things that that involves.
Thank you. Where possible, we would ask folks to give, examples, if you can speak to any specific ones, or as much background support information as you can, because we really want to try to focus on tangible things that are going to tangible, actionable items that we can use to make policy and procedure better.
Do you want me to add to that then?
Please. That wasn't directed specifically at you, but please go ahead.
To some of the things that people talked about. They talked about those black cars with the blackened windows allow the police to see you, but you can't see them, and it's a total division. They recommended that there be foot patrols, bicycle patrols, more very concrete kinds of relationships that you could have with the police. So I thought I'd just add that.
Yes, thank you, Maybell. And just for the record, we do have research partners at the Finn Institute on these calls, and they are our note takers, and they will be helping with the report. So anywhere that you can really point to, as Maybell just did, tangible things that can change for the better, that'll give our research partners, insight as they produce the report. So anyone else on the topic of trust and how you would describe the current status of the relationship between the Schenectady police and the wider community?
Okay, good evening.
Yes, Julia, and then we'll come to Janice. Julia, and then we'll come to Janice.
I'm a member of the Untitled Neighborhood Association. I'm a native Schenectadian. I've lived on Avenue B since 1960. My mother and father, my six sisters and two brothers, we all grew up on Goats Hill. Now, my relationship with the police have been always positive. I've worked several years with the DARE program. I've never really had personally any bad instances with the police. My concern is a quality of life for my neighbors in the Goose Hill area. And I'm talking about quality of issues like the noise ordinance. Now, some people might think that's not very important, but I just retired in July as a teacher. But before my retirement, there were many nights I go to bed at night and I hear music 2 o'clock in the morning. That's very disturbing. And not just for me, but for also the other older neighbors in my neighborhood. So it's quality of life issues. Individuals walking their dogs and not carrying pooper scooper bags, feral cat issues, drivers speeding, dirt bikes. Those quality of issues that I think are very important. And a lot of people might think they're not serious issues, but they are. Some people would always say, Holcomb, you're never around the summer. I said, if I can enjoy my summers in Schenectady, I would stay in Schenectady. I said, but my quality of life is sometimes different from other people's quality of life or different neighborhoods. Okay? And our neighborhood's an aging neighborhood. And so that's, and like I said, I've never personally had any bad relationships with the police. They've always been cooperative with me. I've always enjoyed doing programs, especially with the DARE program. I know other neighborhoods do have problems with the police. I think they do need to be addressed, and they may have a higher priority, but still, I think those other issues of quality of life, they, in some instances, I consider them to be a higher priority too as well. And I'd like to see the police take a little more a positive action towards those issues.
Thank you, Julia. Occasionally, I may try to recap or recap some of what's been said. So if I'm ever off, please chime in and correct me. But what I'm hearing is a desire to have quality of life ordinances enforced a little bit more in the Goose Hill area.
Yes.
Okay, Janice, I see you'd like to speak next. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Jason. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you this evening?
Good. My name is Janice Rouse. I am representing SUN, which is the Schenectady United Neighborhood Association, which is a coalition of all 12 neighborhood associations in our city. I'm also a recent retiree from Schenectady County after 35 years of being a social worker, and I've been a resident of Schenectady for over 35 years. Trust is a big issue, depending on the neighborhood that you reside in, as well as the ethnic group that you happen to belong to. So we are going to have different experiences because we're all different. So from my experience, who I lived in Hamilton Hill for years, I currently live in the Mount Pleasant neighborhood. Trust in regards to dealing with people of African-American background, especially, has been a big issue in the city of Schenectady where the police is concerned. We don't get the same treatment as others. We haven't gotten the same treatment. There have been many incidences that I can recall in my own personal history in regards to police officers coming, when we call as victims, we're treated as assailants. We're treated as the victors instead of the victim. We are also residents and we deserve to be protected and served, but we don't always feel like we can call because we're not protected and served normally. So there is a lot of work to be done in regards to that issue. There are some positive experiences that I've had with the Schenectady Police Department. I have a family member that is a police officer on the Schenectady Police Department. I've dealt with a number of them in my work as a caseworker in responding to, elder situations and, situations of child abuse, etc. So I have had an array of experiences, some good and some bad. There is definitely a common denominator in regards to when we're dealing with people of color and the police officers are dealing with us. And that's where the trust breaks down, where I, have identified and that our concern is. Of course, they're not all bad. And we have some that have issues that we need transparency. We need to know what their histories are, and we need to wean out the bad apples in our police force. But we also need to be all treated equally, and that's where our breakdown is. And in regards to trust, that's what I would like to leave at the table, that everybody is not treated the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Janice. I hear, ask you to put your thing back on me. I'm hearing issues of transparency and respect are trends there. So thank you, Janice. Yes, is that Harleen? Is that Harleen? Am I pronouncing that correctly? All right. You just have to take yourself off mute. Please, you have the floor. We can hear you. Oh, now you muted yourself again. Okay.
Huh.
You're good. We can hear you now.
Okay. I want to introduce Chris Morris. She's from the Stockade. No, well, Chris, she's from Schenectady Landlords, and she's the one that wanted to make a comment.
Oh, more than one. Oh,
Please go ahead.
it's Jason. Oh, finally, we're getting through. My name is Chris Morris. I have a dual role here tonight. And the reason I'm even wanting to be involved is because, number one, I am the director of SLIC, which is Schenectady Landlords Influencing Change, and I'm property manager of a complex on Front Street, on East Front Street. And I am an active member in the East Front Street Neighborhood Association for 20 some years. So I have been involved with the police in many respects, personal and meeting wise. And I want to respond to some experiences, some immediate experiences I have had personally. And our group, I want to say that we certainly have had interaction with most entities in Schenectady, and particularly the police department. Chief Clifford has been at our meeting, and those before him. And we, of course, as landlords and representatives of landlords, we also deal with the sheriff's department, which is very important to us in regard to all of our properties and evictions. So we have personal interactions with the police department. Now, I personally run this complex with 2 buildings, 12 units. I've been living there for maybe 25 years, 27 years, running the place for 10 years. Yeah, maybe even longer than that, 12 years. And then started SLIC. We got involved with all of the relationships with landlord tenants and the city entities. The police have had to come to our unit a number of times for a number of different reasons. And I personally have had to call the police. So I want to speak of that, because when you are in a dire situation where you feel you need support and you make that 911 call and then you anxiously wait. I personally have been accosted by some ne'er-do-well people. Tenant type people might be upset with something, or people coming on premise who have beaten down the door, want to get in and get at me or do damage. I have unfortunately been not involved, but been property manager when there was a domestic dispute. The police had to come, and there wound up being a death. And this is as extreme as it gets. I've personally been involved when someone was trying to move out and take things that weren't theirs. And I personally was interacting with them and need to call the police on 2 occasions. And we have a wonderful complex, a wonderful little neighborhood, but over 12 years, on and off, people have had to come on board, and it could be the police people. And they have always, I have to say, they have always been successful in quelling the situation, responding to the situation, helping us through it, whatever it took, asking, what do you want to do? Do you want to get a restraining order, or, what do you want to do with the most respect? And in the neighborhood, we always have a neighborhood meeting, as all the neighborhoods do, and the police do come to that on a regular basis. We have bicycle police who have come by. We have personal interactions with the police. So the trust and the response to our neighborhood, and we are multicultural. You know, even in our apartment, we've got all variety of people. So it is not based on the color of somebody or the background of somebody. It's based on what they're doing, how they're behaving as people. So I wanted to be sure that we were speaking out, or I am speaking out, in representative of our group and our neighborhood of police interaction that has been positive and good. We want to continue on with that. And certainly, I like to see them. I want them to drive in and out, walking, riding, however they do it, because it's a security. So I've said a lot, but finally I was able to get out to say that. Thanks for listening, Jason.
Thank you. Thank you. And just a reminder for those not on video, if you would like to chime in, we do have myself and folks keeping an eye on the chat room, and you can always just say, I have a response in the chat room, and then I'll call you even if you're not on video. So to that end, I see that I think it's logged in as a Ron Suriano, but I'm seeing that Elisa Suriano has a response to the question. So Lisa?
Hi, Jason. My name is Lisa Suriano. I'm Ron's sister. I live at 144 Clinton Street in Schenectady. I moved down here recently. My brother bought another building, and I moved upstairs across the street from the Clinton Street pub. Talking about the noise ordinance, like Julia commented on, I totally agree with her. I work on the front line. I'm up at 5 a.m. in the morning when there's noise all night long till 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, carrying on from the bar. We have drivers who deliver food from Nico's who are zooming up and down the road here, coming up the wrong way of the road, speeding through the parking lot here. They're going to kill somebody. Somebody's going to get hit. It's going to happen. I have a small dog. I walk my dog. Just, I think they need to take people in consideration who unfortunately go to bed earlier at night and have to get up early in the morning. And like I said, I'm on the front line. I'm working 5 days a week, all day long until sometimes 6 o'clock at night. I'm not saying are not handling it. They are handling it in certain ways. It just, something needs to be done. I just don't think it's fair that, you know, we have to suffer and not be able to get our sleep at nighttime because of the noise from the bar and, you know, the yelling and the screaming outside in front of the bar until all hours of the night. It's just, it's unacceptable. I've never seen a bar that acts like this or carries on like this. I'm 54 years old and I've never seen people stand out in front of a bar all night long, you know, yelling and screaming and partying like it's a social hour, you know, bringing their drinks outside and out in the streets and people coming out drunk, falling on the ground. I've called 911, was on the phone with the police department during the whole interaction that the lady got in the car, drove drunk. They told me they were sending an officer. No one ever showed up the whole entire time I was on the phone with the dispatcher. It's just concerning because if it was your child or somebody that, God forbid, they hit and killed because they left the bar totally intoxicated after they fell flat on their face on the ground, it's just a little, it's disturbing.
Thank you, Lisa, for that perspective. Yes, who is that? Christine Moore, and then Marva. I think we have your audio back. If you're ready to speak, we'll go to Marva,
Yes.
and then we'll go to Christine.
Yes, well, I'm the president of the Hamilton Hill Neighborhood Association, and I have no problems with the police department. None of them. The police are a friend of mine. They are my friends. Not all of them are friends because I don't know all of them, but those that I know, I have no problem with them. I went around into the community and asked the community what they think about the police and if they could write it down and give it to me, and they did. Most of them did not have a problem with the police. One woman had a problem with the police. She said she told the police that she's going to shoot somebody, and the police locked her up, and she was upset with the police. I am a friend of the police. I'm a friend of the sheriff department. I'm a friend of the fire department. I work with them, and because at this community, we need help in this community. Think it goes two ways. If you respect them, they will respect you. You know, and the police, when you see the police, you don't say, "Here comes the po-po." That is not respect. You disrespecting them right there. They're the police, not the po-po. Call them by their names. You know, I have no problem, and anybody have problems, they should talk with the police. Yes, we do need more police on feet here in the community. That's what we need, and there's no problem. If I'm sick and I call, they will be here. They come. You know, I have some friends there in the police department. My head hurt me, and they're here. So I do not have any problems, and most of the community here, I have all the letters that they sent me. Most of the people in the community don't have any problems with the police. Thank you.
Can I say something to that?
Thank you, Marva. And yes, who's that responding?
Dawn Raysor.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Okay, Miss Marva, we belong to the
Yes.
same association or whatever. And so I do know that you do have a personal relationship with them. But I also
Yes.
know or whatever that you are 70 some odd years old, which quite a few people are a little older. And I'm not discounting your age or anything like that. But when I get to be 70 some odd years old and I'm 51 now or whatever, I don't have any run-ins with the police per se now. We are talking about the community as a whole. This isn't just about, one person. Yeah, of course you have a personal relationship with the police. They come and eat at your house. They come and put up, handicap signs around the corner from your house or whatever. So it serves you to be friends with the police. And I'm not saying that I'm not a friend of the police or whatever, but let's be honest. They have not always been the best to the community as a whole. It is all nice and fine and well when everyone says, oh, yeah, well, when we call them, they respond and they're so pleasant and they're so nice. The two women that were on that are on the call, they live on Front Street. Front Street or whatever, yes, the development may be diverse, but it is in a better neighborhood per se. The guy that said that, he lives in Woodlawn and all of his neighbors are, minorities. My mother lives in Woodlawn or whatever. And that's all fine and well too, but that is a totally different community. As a whole, there is not a whole lot of minority representation up there. And I believe when they come to the Hamilton Hill community, it is a whole totally different animal. They look at us like we are subpar, like we don't work, like, oh, these people stand on the street corner, which some of them do, which goes back to the quality of life that people are talking about, because we deserve the quality of life that everyone is talking about. I work, I get up at 5 a.m. When I'm coming home from work, there are a bunch of people standing at these corner stores, but we don't have a loitering ordinance in the city of Schenectady. So that's a different story. So when we are painting pictures of all of these rosy things that are going on in different neighborhoods, the perspectives are going to be different depending on what neighborhood you come from. And I come from here in Hamilton Hill, born and raised. My uncle was the first Black police officer in the city of Schenectady, Arthur Cheers. My brother lost his life in the Schenectady Police Department, lockup or whatever. So am I a little concerned about what we're saying here? And especially from you, Miss Marva, because you do have a personal relationship with them above and beyond anybody on this meeting. So for you to say that everybody, yes, you do have a personal relationship, but this is about everybody in the community. This is about the whole Hamilton Hill, Woodlawn, all of the representation or whatever for all good of everyone. That's just like saying or whatever that you can be, they can police one way in one community and police another way in another community. No, they're here to serve everybody and to protect everybody in the same manner.
Yeah, but
Thank you for that. Oh, okay. Thank you for that comment. We're still on the first question and we're only an hour in, and I kind of don't want to go down the path of personal back and forth. So I appreciate that diverse response. And I think it points to the importance of why we have multiple different geographical areas from Schenectady represented on the call, as well as, different backgrounds. So I'd like us to try to move on. I did see that Christine, Kinley, and Ellie had their hands up to this question. If you three feel you have something to add that wasn't contributed to this question, I'd ask you to please go ahead and raise your hand and respond. If not, I would like to move on to a new question. Yes, Christine.
Hi, Jason. I'm representing Sun, but I'm also a member of the Goose Hill Neighborhood Association. And Janice talked a little bit about Sun and how it's a collective organization. I just want to talk about the neighborhood association's missions, which might, give some background. They kind of align with what the police department does. Our role is to enhance the safety and security of the neighborhood, promote cultural and social activities, preserve and improve our parks and public spaces, abatement of public nuisances, promote community interest, and represent before government and bodies our collective concerns. So as a Sun member and as a neighborhood association member, we have relationships with the police department. It's in Chief Clifford's presentation slides. We're an essential organization that works well with the police department. They come to our meetings regularly, maybe not enough. But there's also that piece that Goose Hill specifically tried to address this summer, which was how do we diversify our neighborhood associations and make sure that we're having these conversations and getting the inputs of all of our neighbors. So systemic problems are existing in other organizations as well. So in terms of adding, I just wanted to add that Goose Hill is diverse and that it has an upper portion, and this was pointed out in a survey that we did with our neighbors, and it has a lower portion. And there's often division within this own neighborhood of the lower part of Goose Hill versus the upper part of Goose Hill. So even some folks from the upper side, well, we're fine up here, but we don't know how they're doing down there in terms of police response and trust and issues going on there. So it kind of contributes to the conversation. It's already been said, but it's important to say that even within our neighborhoods, there is diversity, and people do recognize that there's differences within our own neighborhoods. And just to speak of being pulled over from, I was on Albany Street, pulled over using my cell phone. I drove down, took a right by the MVP building and got pulled over, and I didn't understand why, but it was just sitting there using my cell phone, pulled over, doing the right thing, and then was followed to see what I was doing on Albany Street, parked for no reason. So that was my, I guess, negative interaction with the police. But I've also had very positive ones in terms of collaborating and getting communication out there, which is really important. So we have to do as neighborhoods a better job at communicating what we know and what we're hearing from our police departments with our neighbors, not just those that attend the meetings, but the broader neighborhood. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Christine. I'd like to throw out another question since it kind of, Christine, had a segue into that. Community policing involves police officers working with community members to identify the root causes of crime and then working alongside the community to offer a range of activities that seek to reduce crime and address related issues. Given that definition, to what extent do you think your Schenectady police force practices community policing?
Hi, Jason.
Yes.
This is Janice Rouse. I would like to address that.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Jason, in my opinion, I want to say that, first of all, let me just indicate that the reason that we're here and the reason that these groups are being formed is because of an executive order by our governor. And the governor basically passed that executive order because of the disparity of treatment among Black and brown people in the state of New York. That is a fact. That is not something that, we're just here because, yes, we want a higher quality of life. We want to be able to go to sleep at night so we can get to work in the morning. We don't want to have people loitering around our homes at 5 and 6 o'clock in the morning. Those are real issues for some of us, but there are realer issues for others. Others that are profiled on an ongoing basis, people that have been policed in a very unjust and unfair manner for many, many years. This is why we're at this table today. We're not here because of the loud music and I can't sleep at night. And trust me, in Mount Pleasant, we get that a lot because over the summer, you have the fireworks, you have that, and you have all kinds of stuff. And I've called the police and said, hey, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I don't mind up until 1 o'clock, but it's 3 o'clock in the morning. Can you have them turn it off? But it's a bigger issue, people. And the bigger issue is that Black and brown people in our communities, in the city of Schenectady, across this nation, has been treated unfairly and unjust within our criminal justice system and in our police system. So when we talk about, community policing and things of that nature, one of the issues is that our police force does not represent the community in which it serves as far as the diversity. You very rarely see police forces that look like the community in which they serve. There is very few minority young people on the police force. As I indicated earlier, I do have a family member that currently is a police officer in the Schenectady Police Force. He's probably one of 10 out of 180 employees or more. And I may not have the statistics correctly, but I can tell you that it's not enough. So when we talk about community policing, we have to start doing things that are going to get young people of different cultures to join the police force when they graduate from high school or they graduate from college. They have to be willing to, and so how do we do that? How do we create a connection with our young people so that when they finish high school or they finish college, they might want to be a police officer. When you talk to a lot of young minorities, they'll tell you, I don't want to be a police officer because all their experiences has been very negative with the police officers. Most of their experience, I shouldn't say, I would not, and I do apologize, take the word all out. But a lot of their experiences has been negative as they grew up and they've dealt with the police officers. I have a 28-year-old son who goes to work in Colony every day. And when he came out of college, he said, Ma, I go to work and they stop me at least 5 times in 10 days. It got to a point between Schenectady and Colony, he was stopped maybe 8 times in 3 weeks. So I finally called the police chief and said, hey, you know what? They're just profiling him. And finally, a Niskayuna police officer says, oh gosh, we stopped you a lot of times, man. I'm so sorry. We're going to let you go. He drives a Lexus, not a new Lexus, a 2010 Lexus. But he has dreads. He's a 28-year-old man. He comes from Colony to Schenectady. So these are kind of the experiences that our young people deal with on a regular basis. The George Floyds, the Breonna Taylors, these kind of issues are real for our people. And I don't expect everybody on this call to understand it. But our governor has tasked us to accept and to deal with it because that's our reality. And everybody's experience is not going to be the same. And I'm very glad that everybody's experience is not the same. But the experience that our young people have and that people of color have in this Schenectady, city of Schenectady, this country, is what we're dealing with today and what has to stop. And that's what we're addressing today. That is what we're addressing today. I mean, at the real sense, I have so many experiences that I have a god brother who was killed by the Schenectady Police Department back in the 1990s. All right. He was killed in and it was a big old case and so forth and so on. I can just tell you experience after experience that as a person of color, my experiences are going to be 100% different than Mrs. Harline Andres, than Mrs. Mabel Leon, than even yours, Jason. Okay? So today, but we're dealing with the experiences of Black and brown people in this community. So how do we fix and how do we get to a playing field that is equitable and that is equal? And until we get people on our police force that works in our police force, that works in the police department, whether they're police officers or not, that look like us, that have some empathy for the people that look like their parents or look like their sisters or their brothers, we're going to continue to have these kind of experiences that are not just. So I put that to the table to say that we can be here for hours and days and weeks and months, but we have to address the real problem. And the real problem is Black and brown people in our society has not had a fair share, and we're not treated the same, people. And enough is enough already. So I'm here, and whatever we can do together to make it work, I hope that we can start with some policing ROTC programs where we can get police in our schools, not in our schools, not to be police officers, and I'm not for that one, okay? But somehow through community involvement and connection that our police officers can start a relationship with younger people that will help the younger people when it comes time to them graduating and whatever. They don't mind being police officers. They don't mind being firefighters. We have to increase the workforce so that our workforce look like our communities. They look like that community in Woodlawn where that it's a diverse community. Our police force doesn't look like that, people. Thank you.
Thank you, Janice. Ellie Pepper who'd like to respond next, and then I have David Bachelder after Ellie. So Ellie, please, go ahead.
Thank you, Jason. My name's Ellie Pepper. I am representing the Eastern Avenue Neighborhood Association. You know, my neighborhood is made up of a mix of income levels and ages, family types, races, ethnicities, educational attainment, owner versus renter. So I will say that it's somewhat difficult for me to speak on behalf of everyone in my neighborhood since as a white person, I just have a different lived experience than many of my neighbors. That being said, with the question about community policing, I don't think that the Schenectady Police Department has done a very good job of community policing. They're in cars, 85% of them, by the chief's own report in a previous meeting, don't live in the community, so they're not familiar with this community and with the people that live in this community. I think that there was a huge missed opportunity back in the beginning of all of these protests, shortly after the murder of George Floyd. You know, I was happy to see that the police department did positively engage with protesters. It did my heart good. I felt positive about it. I thought maybe something was going to change, but you know, the department really missed an opportunity to build upon that goodwill, and instead refused to appropriately respond to 13 demands that were put forward by the organization All of Us very shortly after that and prior to the executive order. So they had an opportunity to really make a change very quickly. Not all 13 of the demands, but you know, really looking at those demands and really speaking to those demands. And in fact, the chief actually inflamed things by saying, as he's quoted in an article in the Daily Gazette on the 19th of August, he responded to a task force member who was from All of Us, saying that they were uncomfortable and didn't feel safe at the meetings, and by another criticism from All of Us about the slow pace of the investigation of Officer Palmer by saying, and I quote, "I am not responding to anything that group does or says. Their actions speak for themselves." And I repeat this really mainly not to be hypercritical of the chief. I just think that it is an example of the behavior of the police department that kind of really causes a negative feeling in the community about the reality of whether or not the police department is really interested in engaging in change, real change, and not just reform, but transformation. And I hope that this is going to happen and that these meetings are really going to make an impact and going to make change. And with that, I do want to just give a couple of suggestions that my neighbors brought to my attention as ways for the police department to maybe engage better with the community, especially around community policing. One person suggested that traffic stops be tracked and that data be collected on who is being stopped in order to really determine with data in the city of Schenectady, because as Ms. Rouse said, we know that this is a fact across the country. But let's get some hard data in Schenectady to see if there are certain groups that are being disproportionately impacted. Particularly with traffic stops was what my neighbor suggested. Another neighbor suggested keep doing the community basketball games, but there needs to be more publicity, more encouragement, and a pledge to some continuity. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellie. We're going to go to David B., and then we have Kenneth Brooks up next. David B., and then Kenneth Brooks up next.
Thank you. My name is David Batcheldor. I'm representing the Upper Union Street Neighborhood Association, and just want to respond to the question about community policing. I don't think I've ever seen police officers on foot, at least not around my neck of the woods. I've occasionally seen police officers on bicycles, usually downtown. And as people have pointed out, that they're always driving by in their cars. That's about the extent of having any interactions with police officers. There's no opportunity unless we'll wave to the car as it goes by. And yeah, I think that if you're not going to have that any other kind of visibility, then I don't know how you call it. I don't know how you call it community policing. And just kind of something else somebody said that spurred me, and I'm sorry, this is a little off topic. Somebody several speakers ago made reference to this needs to represent the community. And I was very struck in the Finn Institute, or whatever the name of it is, presentation, where they had all those pie charts and graphs and stuff. And the level of satisfaction with the police department looked pretty good. What I found telling was that there was no breakout. Who are these 1,800 people? What neighborhoods were they from? You know, it was just a lump of people, 1,800 people from Schenectady. Well, as has been pointed out, different areas have different experiences and different interactions with police officers, and I found that very disappointing. I was also very disappointed in the initial PowerPoint by the responses to the 13 demands. They were perfunctory. They were all, well, we've got this policy in place and we got this regulation here. And I didn't read any meaningful effort to address the spirit of those demands. It was all just, oh, we're doing this, we're doing that, everything's good. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you, David. We're going to go to Kenneth Brooks, and then who? Somebody, I see Mabel with her hand up, but Ken Brooks, you're up next.
How's everybody doing? Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, my name is Kenneth Brooks. I'm with Community Fathers. I wasn't born in Schenectady, but I lived here most of my life. And like a lot of people is making good points, and what I see is, you know, there is an issue. That's why this is happening. And the issue here is, you know, the disparity of how people are treated. Now, one thing how I feel is we don't know the police officers. And I'm not saying we as in Black, white, Spanish, we as in the people of the community. Regardless of what community you're in, we really don't know these police officers. Like they say the job, or, you know, the statement is protect and serve. So I think of, you know, protecting my family, and serving my family. So that to kind of relate that with policing, I don't see police protecting me. I don't see them serving me. What I see sort of is, strangers and tyrants with the green light, guns, handcuffs, and the ability to do whatever they want to do. And they don't even know us. So for any individual, regardless of your color, if someone has the power and the authority to shoot you, to handcuff you, to detain you, to enter your life however they want and do whatever they want with it, the least that could happen is they could know you. Sometimes whether it's a call, domestic violence, or a call for a noise ordinance, or just they see something that's disturbing, so they pull out. It's always a stranger with a gun, and there has to be some kind of bridge between a stranger with a gun and me. Your job is to protect and serve, but it seems like that's not what's happening. So you have an officer that, like I said again, they have a gun, they have a badge, they have the authority, and they don't even know who you are. They've never played basketball with you. They've never met your kids. They don't know where you work. They don't know who you are, but yet they have the authority to, do what they do. And I just think that with the community policing, it has to be a bridge between that. Like they say, the police officers, they'll ride by your neighborhoods and they'll stare at you. If I'm here to protect and serve, I'm going to say hello to someone that I'm going to protect and serve. I'm not going to look at them and stare at them with like a look of authority in their eye, or a look of I have the power. It seems like the relationship between police officers and the community, like I said, it doesn't matter your color or what race you are. It's just a gap. So I think bridging that gap, having the police officers more familiar and more comfortable and more knowledgeable about the people who they're serving, I think that'll be a big step in moving forward with the community policing.
I would like to say
Thank you,
something
Ken.
on that.
You're welcome.
Please go. I can't.
Dawn Racor.
Yes, please, Dawn, go ahead. Then we'll come to Maybell, and then we have Donna W. on hold. Go ahead, Dawn.
Okay. We have went out to the community, and some of the things that we've come up with as far as community policing was to deploy the current police officers to the same neighborhoods on a regular basis so that the residents could get familiar with the officers instead of rotating them, as often as they do. We think or whatever, it's just time. We know or whatever that there are budget constraints, but we know or whatever that officers are assigned to certain areas or whatever, say for 30 days, 60 days. We would like or whatever to see the same officers in our communities or whatever for a good period of time, 6 months to, 8 months, if that's possible. Also, getting back to how we engage younger children to want to become police officers. They have an Explorer Club, and it starts, I believe, maybe 9th grade. Some of the neighbors have expressed or whatever, starting the Explorer Club at the 7th grade level, matching students with officers to introduce them to law enforcement career choices at an earlier age, as well as doing that with the fire department to include. We were also thinking maybe, because I heard one neighbor say to me about the training academy, the police academy, to address the multicultural norms of that academy, how it needs to be more diverse. We hit on that. Also, as far as the college requirement, a couple of neighbors have bring up that it's 30 credits for people to join the police force, or you don't have to graduate, it's just 30 credits. That seemed to be a little concerning to the community because we know some of our members in the community, or a lot of them or whatever, do not go to college. College just isn't for everybody, but I don't think it should be a turnoff or something that says you can't be in law enforcement because you don't have any college credits. So that was another issue. Also, whatever, a couple of the neighbors said, okay, well, if they want them to go to college for a little while, why can't they join the force and go to college and take some credits, a little bit at a time, but being on the force, as well. So those were some of the inputs or whatever that we had in regards to police, community policing, and how we engage our young people in wanting to become law enforcement agents.
Thank you, Dawn. Mabel, and then we're coming to Donna W. next. Mabel, please go ahead.
I just wanted to say, obviously, community policing is based on giving people a voice, but it's much more than that. It's not an opportunity for people to vent and just raise issues. It should be an opportunity to contemplate change. And I am really concerned about this in this whole effort. There is a tendency of organizations to want status quo. That's what they're comfortable with, that's what they know, and that's what they want to continue to do. Change is difficult and not easy. I would like to agree with Ellie and David about the young group, All of Us, that was formed after George Floyd was murdered. They came up with 13 demands. Now, those 13 demands were responded to by Chief Clifford on the kickoff of this event. And they were, as David said, perfunctory responses in which the police department basically said, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this. There was no effort to take those demands seriously. Out of 13, there must have been some that you could have looked at to try to implement. I'll give you an example. They asked for no shooting at moving vehicles. And the police department responded that they always consider safety, and only if nothing else works and you have to stop a vehicle do you do that. Well, the but is the big issue. It wasn't really heard. I would stress, I think that's a very good thing to not shoot at moving vehicles for the safety of everyone. Another example was banning chokeholds, strangleholds, all those very horrible kinds of force. But it was after that had executive order from the governor that banned those things that we had the incident with Palmer in Schenectady. And so I think the police department has got to really work at responding with change, not just allowing people to vent what the issues are, but doing something about the issues.
Thank you. And in the next 45 minutes, we will move to solutions for change. So please, Donna W., you're next.
Hi, I still wanted to address briefly the sense of the police department as a community. My name is Donna Wojcik, and my Chromebook couldn't handle the webinar, so Marianne was nice enough to let me to come over. I am a homeowner, have been on Front Street for 15 years. It is a lower income to middle income neighborhood sandwiched between the Stockade and the casino. It is a very diverse neighborhood with more tenants than homeowners, but it is a very diverse neighborhood. I never thought, I grew up in Chicago, and ever since I've lived here and in Chicago, I never thought of the police as being part of a community. I've always seen the police as being this entity that acts on the periphery of a community and sometimes drives through in these as Mabel said, kinds of cars that you don't know who they are, why they're there, and they don't need to tell you. And until something happens in that community where they're asked to come in, then they come in. And it's usually when an accident's happened, something dangerous has happened, a drug issue is happening. And that's often a very intimidating and agitating situation for the people who live in that community. And sometimes when police officers come in with an intimidating kind of stance, or sometimes even just the look of the police officers with those big belts and that, when a person's under stress, that can be unnerving for some people, and it would probably be so I've never seen them as a member of our community. And when I take my dog on a walk, I have a young dog and I take this dog on walks all the time. I stopped and asked many people of all races in my neighborhood, and I just got quizzed. I asked if anybody had bad situations. I didn't get any responses from that. But when I asked if they saw the police as a member of the community, I just got quizzical looks from people like, I don't even know who the police are. They could not tell you any names. And I think what's happening is between the police and the people in the community, the people in the community don't see police as individuals. They see them as the police force. They see them as this unit, just like the police look at people and they see a neighborhood of Black people or a neighborhood of white people or neighborhood. They're not seeing individuals either. They're seeing this larger group. And I think it would be really wise maybe for both parties to work more on the human end of seeing each other as people. And there could be maybe even something that they could think about, like having a liaison person in a neighborhood that works with a liaison person in the police department, where people in the neighborhood have a person they can contact, an individual, where they could say, this is what's happening in my community, how can it be addressed? And that liaison police officer can become a real live individual person to them, saying, I hear you, I see you, I'm listening to you. And I guess that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Donna. Okay, before we move on to the next question, we have one more person, Ron, who would like to speak to this most recent question. Ron, please go ahead.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ron Suriano. I own a couple businesses downtown here in Schenectady, and I know some of you guys that I'm listening to have neighborhood associations in other areas of the city that I would love to reach out to some of you to talk about it. One of the things, our downtown is thriving with residential, and that's one thing that we don't have down here. So we don't have a neighborhood association because primarily downtown was littered with more of businesses as opposed to residential areas. So as I'm listening to some of the conversation about certain areas that are needing certain police presence and things like that pertaining to, colors of people's skin and everything else. And, we can't disregard things that we're having issues down here that may not relate to other neighborhood associations. So when we have police presence in our area, what we're looking for are, similar things, but not on the same level, where yes, we are going to have noise ordinance problems. Yes, we are going to have people that, I have people that just walk on my property and decide that they're going to hang up on my roof. So these are things that we deal with because we don't have house after house after house. We have businesses, we have apartment complexes, we have things like that in our downtown. So what we're looking for as, and I've lived downtown now for the past 4 years, and I've seen things change. I converted a building that was not residential into residential because I wanted to be part of my community. So during that, I've provided information to the city where we wanted to start a surveillance assistance to the police to be down here so that the business owners and the property owners that have properties in our downtown area can actually work together with the police officers in case we have, someone speeding down the road or someone drunk driving, that we can help them if anything, so that we can help the community be better, because we are also looking for a better way of life down here. And it's not fun when we're trying to, live our lives and we've got, people screaming and we've got cars speeding down the roads where your dogs are trying to walk So we have the same issues. It may not be a black and brown thing, but we still have the same issues that other communities have that, we would love to see more police presence, even walking downtown. We used to have Nick, and then Nick was promoted to detective, and now I have never seen the guy that's actually the foot cop in our downtown Schenectady. Never, ever. Since Nick left, I've maybe seen him maybe once or twice. So, these are things that we're neglecting in our downtown. And then when we call about something that needs to be taken care of down here, it takes them forever to get here because the police are in other regions of the county taking care of that. So how can we have a good way of life when it takes the police, 4 hours to get to a complaint that we have? So it may not seem like much when it comes to the noise, but I don't want to be up at 3 o'clock in the morning or 1 o'clock in the morning with people throwing off fireworks. I promoted something on my page with my business and about how the police were offering hotlines for, excessive fireworks. I was blasted by somebody about this whole Black Lives Matter, that I was just basically wanting the police to, arrest innocent Black people. And I'm like, that's not why I posted that. I wanted to help with people that own dogs, that are in the military, that have PSD, what is it called? Post-traumatic stress disorder. I wanted that to help them, but they turned it all into something that I was not even going with. And that's hard too, as somebody in the community, that I'm fighting for everybody down here, and to be like thrown into this fighting match with somebody about something that wasn't even pertaining to Black Lives Matter. So I want to be part of the community. We need to start something up downtown here as well, because we have the same issues, but they're a little different. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Ron. Okay, folks, we're coming up on just a little over 30 minutes left, and I'd like to move to solutions. So for the remainder of the time that we have, I'd like you to try to focus your responses to tangible, actionable things that you can suggest to the Finn Institute and to the task force that's actually going to move the needle when it comes to policies, procedures, and practices. And, as mentioned at the outset, if you read the executive order from the governor, these task force are our tasks to expressly deal with racial disparities that exist. So let's just kind of look at these issues through that lens as best as possible. And for the next 37 minutes, we'll try to focus responses that provide some type of way to move forward. So with that, if you were to envision an ideal Schenectady Police Department 6, 9 months, a year from now, what would that look like? How would it look different from now as compared to the ideal vision? What things currently exist that you'd like to see go away? What things that do not exist right now that you'd like to see added or supported? So again, we've got about 30 minutes left, and I'd really like to focus on the solutions phase. So please, anyone would like to respond to that? Envisioning an ideal Schenectady Police Department that has a strong relationship with the community. What would that look like? How would it be different from now? What things would go away and what things would be added to that ideal vision?
Yes.
This is Ellie Pepper again, and I guess I kind of want to ask a question. And I don't know if if anybody from the police department can answer a question from us, but I'm just kind of wondering, like, how do they determine where they're going to do bicycles and where they're going to do foot patrols and where they're going to do cars? And that might maybe, the answer to that might maybe give some idea of some suggestions for how to do those things in a different way.
Okay. Chief, if you're in a position to quickly answer that question, please go ahead.
Hey, Ellie, it's Daryl Mallard. I'm the Assistant Chief of the Patrol Division. Right now, we typically deploy a foot post downtown 8 a.m. to midnight. And then in the other neighborhoods, it's kind of a seasonal attempt. Obviously in the spring and summer we try to do it, but most of the time the officers bring their bikes with their police car. Obviously, they need to be able to handle emergency calls, and with the amount of priority 1 calls that we're handling, which is our highest level emergency, they haven't been able to ride or walk, as much as we have wanted them to, because we're still responsible for answering those calls. So, obviously we try to get out there as much as possible. But obviously from some of these meetings, it's apparent that it's not enough, and we certainly acknowledge that.
Thank you for that. I'm getting a word that there might be some folks with hands up that I'm not seeing. For some reason, I'm only seeing about 10 little thumbnails with actual video on. And if I'm missing someone, or if somebody has a question that I'm not seeing, or if you've had your hand up, please just throw your name into the chat box and say you have a response, and I'll make sure to call on you, because for some reason I'm only seeing about 8 to 10 actual thumbnails with video, and I may be missing some folks. So David B. would like to respond to this question as far as potential solutions and envisioning an ideal Schenectady police force. Yes, David, please, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. First thing I would say, and this is going to sound kind of negatory, but I would like to have a better sense that this process is being taken seriously. As I said earlier on, the 13 points were addressed in a very unsatisfactory manner. And in fact, the opening meeting was, to me, was just, slapping the Schenectady Police Department on the back and saying, attaboy. And not to say they aren't doing great stuff. I'm sure they are, but I didn't feel like there was a sense of, okay, let's get this together and start seeing what we can do to make it better, because there are obvious disparities between various individuals in various neighborhoods. And like I say, the 13 demands, come on, respond, say, give me a response that I can, that helps. The second thing is the whole community policing thing. As I said, I don't think I've ever seen police on foot. Rarely on bicycles, and that you can't get to know them in a squad car going by. And the third thing is the unfortunate term, defund the police. I am not suggesting that at all. However, I do think that the resources we need to look at reallocating the resources. My pet example is someone with a mental health issue who is, who clearly needs to be dealt with and is, raising a ruckus and is not doing well, is decompensating. And that's just not in the wheelhouse of a police officer, in my opinion. And that's not to denigrate any police officer or their training or anything else. You need somebody whose expertise is indeed mental health issues to try to de-escalate the situation. And I'm sure there are a lot, somebody talked about domestic violence, housing, people, downtown who are, somebody was talking about somebody falling down drunk. Well, maybe the police aren't the best people to respond to those kinds of calls. And I think resources may well need to be reallocated so that police can focus on what police are trained to do and what they should do. So that's my 2 cents, and I hope that's helpful.
Thank you, David. I'd ask everybody who's not speaking just a reminder to be on mute. And I have quite a few people in queue here, and I want to make sure I get to some people who haven't had a chance to speak yet this evening. So we'll go to Kim Lee, and then we have Carol D after. Kim Lee, and then Carol D is next.
Hi, Jason. Thank you so much. I have a question. I'm just wondering if there have been any types of studies that have been done, and I'm not sure who would be doing it, on other police forces and, who were successful in building better trust and better community relationships. And perhaps some things that the Schenectady Police could model their performance and their policies after some other types of police forces who have had success in this area. I mean, it just sounds like there's not a lot of trust going on here. I mean, everybody's made really great points, and just the point. I don't remember the young man that was speaking from the fathers group, but he said some things I hadn't really thought about. I mean, just the point of what police look like when they're coming at you, can be so intimidating that it puts up that issue, and that fear, lack of trust is immediately there right away. I mean, I personally have not, I'm a member of SLIC. We always have had great attendance by the police coming to our meetings. I've had the sheriff's department help me out. There was one sheriff that stayed with me for 4 hours in order to remove a tenant who was doing a lot of illegal things in one of my properties. So I can't really say that I've had a lot of negative experiences with the police. I live on Lakeview Avenue in Mount Pleasant, and we are between Crane and Chrysler. It's all single family homes, pretty much everybody that, owns their own home, but our street is only 1 block long, and it's like, a raceway. And we've called the police many times, and they've tried to put up that thing that shows you how fast you're going. Nobody cares. I mean, I'd love to get a big old speed bump out on the street, tell you the truth. But, I'm just wondering if there's any studies that are available of, here's a model that has actually worked in other cities, that maybe some pieces of that could be followed and modeled after by the Schenectady Police Department. And I do agree with the last gentleman that just spoke that I do think that we need a portion of the police department to be someone who can do some mental health kinds of things. So thank you.
Thank you for those comments. And I would venture to say that a consideration of best practices is going to likely be part of this process. And our research partners with the Finn Institute have engaged in task force of this nature. So, but excellent point there. Carol D, who hasn't had a chance to speak yet. Carol.
I'm going to speak a little bit about a suggestion. I think I heard from the policeman who just spoke that the challenge is that some of the minor problems don't get addressed because calls from neighbors and stuff, because they're, the patrols are sort of pursuing things in their cars, so they can't be on the bikes. And I guess I was thinking that the kinds of things that generate minor calls, whether it's speeding or noise or all the quality of life things that we kind of heard, might better be addressed in a more proactive way, or preventing the problems so that no one actually has to call the police about it. So, for example, really improved signage for, I'm going to say, I know that people are for speeding or one-way streets or all of that stuff that seems to, if neighbors didn't have to complain about that kind of stuff, they wouldn't have to call the police to sort of say, can you do something about this? So if there are ways the police working with other departments within the city that are responsible for traffic and signage and parking signs and all of that, maybe improve that in more of a problem prevention, proactive way, as opposed to waiting till neighbors have to complain about it endlessly. That would sort of free up, and maybe there's a way then the bicycle patrols can stop at some of the places that are responsible for generating the noise that we all complain about, the taverns and stuff, and remind them of those rules in a community but policing way, as opposed to having to show up when maybe the music is too loud, doing it beforehand. So it's those kinds of solutions, as opposed to waiting for the calls to come in and they don't get the priority that neighbors wish they would because the police are busy doing other things. So that's all.
Thank you, Carol. Marva, I see your hand. We have a couple other folks we need to get to. So Ken Brooks and then Christine Moore. And again, we've got about 25 minutes. And from a racial disparity lens, I'd like to spend the next 25 minutes on solutions of what you'd like to see in an ideal situation. Yes. So, Kenneth, please.
No, I already spoke. You can go to someone else.
Okay. Christine, did you want to jump in?
Thank you, Jason. I have 2 points. One was that Sun met back on July 22nd with some members of the Civilian Police Reform Board, and the minutes from that meeting reflect maybe some outdated, because I'm looking back from July. There were some comments regarding how they were pushing for some changes with the Civilian Police Reform Board. The first point was they cannot see personnel records through Section 50A of the state law, which was recently enacted. And then there's question marks about overturned, and I'm not going to say that I'm up to date on the most information, but the complaint was Schenectady Police Department won't give them personnel records because the police union blocks it. The second point was that they want to see statistics on the Schenectady Police Department use of force broken out by demographic groups. The third point was complaints they see do not identify officers. They want to see the names of the officer against whom the complaint is made. They have had trouble reaching a quorum in the past because sometimes the CPRB members don't attend meetings. They want to be able to have alternative members. And they're wondering if that's because of the amount of power that they have as a board. They want legal support from the city. No lawyers are assigned, and they sometimes have to sort through difficult legal issues. So these were, as a result of things that were going on, especially in July, of some, and Sun has a member on that board as well. So that's again how we're connected with the Civilian Police Review Board, and our members were reporting back to us, and those were what they were asking for in terms of reforms to the Civilian Police Reform Board. The second point I just will bring up really quickly is an example of, I'm sure the education meeting that you guys have coming up will be really interesting as well with the youth. And they will, I'm sure, youth will share their own ideas in terms of how to combat some of these issues. But Schenectady Foundation has been an integral part in the city of Schenectady in terms of providing in crisis throughout. I've participated with their youth summit that they do yearly. Didn't happen this year. But they get volunteers and folks around to facilitate conversations with youth, and the youth are charged with solving problems. Some quality of life problems might be addressed through a youth summit, similarly done like a World Cafe. And I also do the Thriving Neighborhoods through the Schenectady Foundation, which again is an excellent model and strong force that we have in our city. Some folks from our neighborhood talked about, the Northside Little League, getting the police participating and rebuilding that space, project-based approaches to working with the police on something that improves our communities, including those seemingly minor quality of life issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine, and thank you for focusing your comments on potential solutions. Again, I'm trying to get to everyone. We have about 20 minutes left. I'm going to go to Marianne, then Marva, and then I also see Jim's hand up, and Janice has a response as well. So first, Marianne, please. What would you offer to potential solutions that the task force can consider?
Yes, hi, my name is Marianne Rossetto from the East Front Street neighborhood. To start out with, I don't just want to say I'm a little sensitive of the police because I have family members and friends who are cops, and I worry about them every day. And I feel that there are two sides to this story. I think the police are trying hard to make things better. They are receptive to changes and are working hard to make it right. But what we need to remember is that there is the two sides of situations. We need to work at seeing what the police are dealing with every day and what stress they encounter every hour that they're working. Take a minute and think about it. The dangers they face every day. Is that domestic going to pull a gun on me? Is that kid who is high on drugs going to charge at me with a knife? They'd have to make these decisions in a split second. With that being said, way back a few years ago, the police offered a civilian police academy, which I attended. And what it is that you learned what the specific jobs were of these cops in the police department. And we went on a ride along with them, and I felt it was very valuable. So maybe this is something that they should bring back to the community for the people in the neighborhoods, and also have a police academy for the younger children in the schools to learn what a cop does. So it may entice them to want to become a policeman and learn. And doing this police academy is how I met a lot of these policemen also. So this is just one of the ideas I wanted to offer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Again, if for some reason we don't get to everyone tonight, the task force is collecting, or if there was a question we didn't get to this evening that you'd like to offer a response, you can certainly send those written responses to the SPD collaborative email. Marva, we have Marva, Jim, and then Janice. Please, Marva.
Yes. Schenectady usually used to had police officers riding bikes in the community. So we could have that again. But the only thing is that the police officers cannot ride it when it's snowing. So they would have to use the cars. And that is a very good idea for them to come back riding the bikes in the community. That would be good.
Thank you. Jim, did you have a hand up, sir?
Yes, I did.
Please go ahead.
Just want to second the idea. I like the idea of diversified police cadets that someone brought up, where maybe they didn't have the required minimum, satisfy the required minimum qualifications, but they could be working on that as they work their way through college and so on, and to meet those qualifications. I also think that we need to have a crisis intervention team for some of the situations to de-escalate things without the use of force. Now, I don't believe that that's going to entail taking funding from the police. I think everything I'm hearing talks about spending more money on safety and security. And I say that because the crisis intervention person is going to have to be backed up by police in case, for those few instances that the situation goes south, and you can't leave that crisis intervention person out there with their safety compromised. I also think that the city needs to respond to the 16 demands. I personally don't like the 16 demands, and I would hope that the city would respond to those. I would say I don't like most 16 demands. And I think by not responding, I think the city is, well, we've already heard that they're getting some criticism for not responding. So I think at times people are afraid to confront the all of us group. They're rather a strong, boisterous group. And I would hope that the city should one by one go in and address each one of those, whether it's already covered by something else, what can be done. But let's put that issue to bed. And hopefully it'll be a negative response. That's my opinion.
Okay. Janice, please.
Hi.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes. Well, I think that we could start, and let me just give a little bit more background, if I may. I was in the military for 15 years, and also as a social worker in Schenectady, witnessed a lot of stuff. Training is very important. You know, as a military person, you know, we trained and we trained and we trained. We were always ready. And I'm proud to say that as a member of the United States military, that I felt that I was always ready to be activated if necessary. And if I was activated, there was a standard that we had to live by according to our training. You know, we have the Geneva Convention. So even though we were trained to go out and be in war if necessary, there were certain ways that we would have to act. So I believe that if our police force is trained on how to deal with certain communities and certain cultural individuals, that maybe they will carry out their duties a little better. because it is a hard job. I will tell anybody, being a police officer, we cannot take that job lightly. I have a cousin who just retired from the Detroit police force after being on the police force for 37 years. And he said to me, Janice, if we can get training better, that these people are not trained, our officers are not trained to kill. They're not trained to go in to just kill all the time. And maybe some of the outcomes would be different, but that's how they're trained. And I say that in addition to that, we have to not only talk the talk, but we got to be willing to walk the walk. And as a community, we have to be willing to embrace change. And there's a time, and right now, this is our opportunity for change. We need more, again, and I know I said this earlier, a diverse police force. We need to, if that means enacting the affirmative action, if that means bringing social workers into our police force, if that means bringing support staff into our police departments to alleviate some of the things that they have to do, then those are the kind of things that we need to do. We also need to consider that when you are a police officer, you should be able to be identified when you're out there in the field. As a social worker, I carry business cards with me. And if I go into someone's home or go and greet somebody in the community, I was required to give them a business card or give them my name with the office phone number. It's very difficult sometimes to identify the police officer that you had an experience with, be it good or bad. So we need to be able to identify the police officers as lay people, and we don't have to worry about a badge number. Why can't they wear a badge with their name on it or carry business cards so that they can say, you know what? I know they don't want to be giving out business cards when they're arresting people, but we should be able to know that's Officer Johnson or that's Officer Leon or Officer Marquise. So I would suggest that one, we change the police officers, how they're identified in the community so people can know who they're dealing with. Two, that we have our police officers trained in a different manner and dealing with cultural sensitivity and dealing with how to de-escalate situations instead of escalate situations, and be objective instead of subjective because of their own personal experiences. And three, that we also look at the fact that, and I have to bring this back to somebody's attention. Someone said a police officer spent 4 hours with them dealing with a tenant situation. God bless, because you don't get that. If they're so busy, where do they get that kind of luxury to deal with a tenant situation for 4 hours in the city of Schenectady when we're talking about all of this crime? We also need transparency. We need our police officers and our police force and our departments to be transparent. We want to know who they're profiling, if they're profiling. I'm not going to just say they are, but if they're profiling. But all of these stops and these young people that are getting stopped, I had an individual tell me that they got stopped because they got out of their car and basically they left their car running. I didn't know that was a law, that you can't get out your car and leave your car running. It was a young African-American male. He went into a store. His friend was outside standing there, but the police officer didn't know his friend was standing there. They actually pulled this kid over, went through his whole car and etc., just because he got out of his car and left his keys in the car. That doesn't happen in every neighborhood. So we need transparency. We need our police department and our community to be willing to embrace change, y'all. It's time that we embrace change. And I thank everybody on this call, everybody who is part of these talks, because if one of us is being treated incorrectly, then we all should feel the impact. And that's what's happening today, because that tells us the heart of our society. And I believe Schenectady has heart. So I'm saying the changes that we need to do, as I indicated, is to increase our force, make it more diverse, embrace our youth, get our youth so that they can be willing and ready to be enjoying our police force, etc. So I thank you guys for your time, and I thank all of you who are giving your time, and in the spirit of love, just thank you for your time.
Thank you, Janice. We have about 10 minutes. And I'd like to really encourage remaining responses to focus on potential solutions or potential things to make this task force, produce a well-rounded report at the end. So about 10 minutes left and we're still taking responses. How would you improve the Schenectady Police Department? If we just wanted to put a simple, basic question out there, how would you improve Schenectady Police Department? 10 minutes left and we want tangible as possible suggestions.
I would like to add a solution or a possible solution, Dawn Race, Oregon. I had hit on about the college credits, being 30 college credits for someone to join the police force. We would like to see using prior learning assessment for college credits instead of actual college credits, basically using, learning or whatever, and what you've learned or whatever assessments for in place of college credits. Also, Schenectady Police Department has a program called Schenectady Care Program. And it's a little disconcerting to me because that program is dealing with people that have addiction, drug addiction. But in order for them to actually use this program or whatever, they have to, if they have a warrant, they have to answer the warrant and then get treatment. I don't think that serves the community any good. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't be accountable for their actions. But if this program is designed to deal with drug addiction, then I think that should be the basis of the program, not, oh, if you have a warrant, then you have to, serve, or go in front of a judge and deal with this warrant, and then we will get you help. That is not, I don't think, helpful to our community because they have bigger issues outside of that warrant. Now, once they enter the program and if they stay in the program or if they default, for some reason or another, then yes, right away or whatever, immediately you should go ahead and deal with those warrants. But it deters people from turning themselves in to get treatment, and so I don't think that really serves our community very well, because if you're familiar, or if anybody is familiar with Eagle and State Street, that area has a very, very high drug and crime ridden right there on that corner. I mean, there's drugs galore. You can, whatever drug you want, you can get it from Eagle and State Street. But you see some of those people, and some of those people may need help, but there are no outreach programs for them to actually seek help unless they actually enter into, a treatment facility. But they can't just walk into the police department and say, hey, I'm, reach my lowest. I want to get help. I heard about the Schenectady Cares program, but it's deceiving because they don't realize or whatever that they have to deal with their open warrant before they can actually utilize this program. So I think if we could change this somehow, I think it would be more beneficial to our neighborhood or whatever, in cooperation with them dealing with their warrants, but getting them help or whatever, and them realizing, okay, once we get you to a certain place, you have to take accountability, and in a clean mind, and a person that really wants help or whatever is going to be able to take accountability and say, you know what, I have to be responsible for my actions or whatever, and I know I was wrong because I'm trying to do the right thing.
Thank you, Dawn.
James,
Okay,
I
we've
would like to.
got, I'm sorry, we've got about 5 minutes left, and I would just call for any kind of closing wrap-up comments. Again, tangible, productive things that the task force can consider.
Jason, I'd like
What I
to
would
share
like to say
something.
with,
Okay, one at a time, please. Marva, Maybell, and Kimley, go ahead.
I would like to see the police interact more with the kids playing basketball with the young kids. The young kids out there need some help out there, and I would like to see the police interact with them more often. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybell and Kimley.
Maybell,
You're still on mute, Maybell. Which is one of the most uttered statements of 2020. You're on mute.
Do I need to do
No,
something?
you're good now. No, you're good now.
Okay. I wanted to reiterate support for the mental health unit because I think people that are in the midst of a mental health crisis don't often respond well to the kind of a police intervention. So I also think our mental health resources are quite limited, and this is something that would need funding for it to work well. I think that someone else brought up transparency. There needs to be transparency and consequences for police misbehavior. And that's a tough one because sometimes the union is a barrier, and we have a current case right now. So I think this is an area that may need change because there does need to be transparency for transgressions, and it should also include when there's discriminatory language, when there's a lack of professionalism, any of those issues in addition to physical force or physical inflicted injuries. I also think there needs to be training for the police department to give them skills to learn how to de-escalate situations. I think most of the training is on how to use weapons and not on how do you de-escalate when you're going to arrest someone. And I think that's a whole set of skills. The other thing is training on bias, training, understanding the various cultures of people that live in our community, because you need to understand a community if you're going to relate to it. So often I think training is not that effective. So I think training needs to be experiential. People have to do things so they experience, and they need to hear from people of color in the community.
Thank you, Mabel. Excellent points.
Jason, the thing that I'm sitting here thinking, you know, with COVID going on and many of us, you know, we can't interact with each other, which that's how you build relationships, you know, face-to-face, people-to-people. So how do we get beyond that? I don't really know if this would be possible or not, but, you know, maybe with today's challenges, a lot of people talking about training, building community, taking down walls. You know, maybe the only way we can really get to know each other is to get together on Zoom meetings. And I can't believe I'm saying this because I hate Zoom meetings, but, you know, find a way that we can do this kind of thing. Like all these people that, I mean, I only knew on here, 2 people on here, but, you know, do this kind of on a more regular basis and bring in trainers. You know, I mean, the police, yes, they need training, but so do the community members. You know, if we all participate in training together, we'll all learn together and we can make improvements together. You know, I don't think we can just say just the police should be responsible for building community. I think each one of us needs to be responsible for building community. So my suggestion is to consider getting some professionals to come in, maybe some social workers, you know, and help us all together on Zoom meetings, I guess, to start to build community and get to know each other better.
Thank you. Thank you. Christine, I see you're waiting, but Junior hasn't spoken yet this evening. And Junior, if you'd like to add a comment.
Good evening, everyone. I have a quick question. I'm not sure if this was ever done in the past with this police department or any other department. If we can do a survey with our officers and find out what issues they have when they come out in the community, how can we build trust? We're trying to get feedback from the community. We also, as a community, wants to get feedback from the police officers. Let's see what insight they have. How can they change something? What needs to be done inside the police department rather than just focusing on the community at large? Because we have to work together. It's all of us working together to build a better community for everyone.
Thank you for that point, Junior, and I'll let everybody know that one of the community conversations actually is going to include public safety officers. So we will have a session like this of individuals who serve in that capacity in some way, shape, or form. So that will be a chance for some input from within. And again, those perspectives, as well as everyone's, will be reflected in the final report. But that's an excellent point. It's going to be the effort. It should be a reciprocal conversation. Christine, you have our last statement, and then I'm going to turn it back over to the chief and mayor.
I think Junior put it really well. My question was, are the patrol officers, is everyone in the department following these conversations? Because it feels like that kind of voice is lacking, and just interested in hearing what their feedback is from having all these difficult conversations, and hope that these difficult conversations continue, because they have proven, in my experience, to be enlightening and can go off into rogue groups and continue to trickle down just from having, a few people who are able to communicate and through these difficult conversations. Thank you, Jason. Great job.
Thank you. And again, just a reminder, I see about 5 or 6 officers right here in the conference room, and that conference room has participated in all of these calls. And again, we will have a session expressly with public safety officers where we will hear their perspectives on these issues. So with that, we are 1 minute over. I appreciate everyone's time on this call tonight. As I stated from the beginning, we're not going to be able to solve all of these issues in 2 hours, but your active engagement is integral to this process. And again, if there was a question from our list that you really wanted to answer and you didn't, you can submit that in written form. Or if you have any further suggestions or comments, you can submit those to the SPD Collaborative email, which is where you received tonight's invite and agenda. So that is it for me. I appreciate everybody's participation, and I'm going to turn it over to the chief and mayor for a final statement. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I just want to thank Jason. Appreciate everyone being part of this tonight. Great discussion, good points, raises people's awareness of what people are thinking, potential areas of improvement. And we look forward to continuing this discussion and this process. Turn it over to Chief Clifford.
Thank you, Mayor. I also would like to thank everybody for for this discussion tonight. Took pages of notes, so we were listening here. One thing before we all go, I just wanted to answer Kimley's question, because I thought it was important that I give you an answer when you asked about if there's any models that we use currently, especially for community policing. And it's fair to say that when President Obama's task force on 21st century policing first came out in May of 2015, then Chief Brian Kilcullen started talking about it internally. And fast forward now to 2020, I can say that we model this policy internally here. There's 6 pillars of this of his report that we've adopted here at the police department. The first one is to build trust and legitimacy. And we've proven that by our focus on procedural justice and principled policing. We have 2 master instructors, and we talk about it yearly in training sessions. It's something that we continuously try to do here at the police department. The second pillar is policy and oversight. And I'm proud to say that, as it was already mentioned, that we became accredited by the state this year. And that shows that our policies are in compliance with the state's standards, and that there is oversight on the state level, that our policies are in compliance with them. The third pillar is technology and social media. And we went to body-worn cameras 2 years ago in order to embrace that technology so that we can review the actions that our officers are taking out in the community. For years, we've had in-car videos. So the embracing of that technology is something that we're proud of. In addition, we've had an increased social media presence over the last 2 years. The fourth pillar is community policing and crime reduction. And we've had now for the second year, now this is our second year of having our own Office of Community Engagement. It's got a lieutenant and a sergeant assigned to it, and they work closely with our Field Services Bureau chief on attack, really looking at crime in neighborhoods and seeing what can be done on the community policing level. So it is something that we've been working on. The fifth pillar is training and education. And it's fair to say that, thankful for the mayor and the city council. Each year we make a major investment in training and education. It's always a focus of ours. And the last pillar is officer wellness and safety. And I can tell you that it is a focus of ours because we understand that our officers have to be well to be out there to serve the community. It doesn't do anybody any good if we have an officer out there who's not really up for the job and themselves are in crisis. So we talk about it often here. We have a peer support team, and we want to make sure that our officers are at the top of their game when they're out there serving the community. So it's also fair to say that we research, I research myself personally, but also all of my command staff research other models that we can replicate. Chicago and New York City are two agencies that we follow very closely on what they're doing. And we also are following what Newark, New Jersey has been doing with community policing and engagement. So I hope that answers your question as far as that goes. And again, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jason. It was a very good meeting and we got a lot out of it. Thank you.
Thank you for that information. I appreciate it.
Okay, everyone. Again, we appreciate your time. And if you felt like there was something you didn't get a chance to say,